It was profoundly disturbing and depressing. And I gave my life to God at that point. And I gave all my struggles to God. And I said, God, I'm not going to worry about it. And I tell you guys, it wasn't gone after that. You know, yes, I gave my life to God. And after that, I still struggled with it for many, many years. And it was a process that God led me. While on one side, He literally put people in my life who would love me, embrace me, hug me, tell me that they love me. On the other side, I also felt that I was different and I am rejected, you know. And there are people who doesn't like me just because the way I am and things like that. And so just growing up like this, and I was yet very involved with the church. Now that I gave my life to Christ, I remember witnessing to a Brahmin man one day, and I talking to him. He just asked me a lot of questions. He was so eager to know, so he was asking all these questions, and I wanted to tell him so much about God's word, and I realized that, you know, I cannot even properly tell him about it. Because I lack education, I don't know what to do. When he asks questions, I can only talk about certain things and not the other. I came home that day and I strongly felt that God has not just saved my soul, but He really wants to use my life in serving Him. And I remember that evening when I came home, my dad was having dinner, and as I walked in, and I told my dad, Dad, I want to go into full-time ministry. I believe God is calling me into full-time ministry. And I remember, I literally saw tears dropping off. And I just thought, oh my, I just said something horrible. Because in India, when you grow up in a country with a lot of needs, it is Indian parents. Do you know why? One of the reasons why Indian kids prosper here? Because the parents, they are always telling them, you gotta be a doctor or engineer. You gotta be something in your life. You know, that's when the world will value. And so I knew that many times I've heard my dad say the same thing. One day, my sons will also be doctor or engineer. Then that's the ultimate goal of a lot of Indian parents. You know, that's the highest profession we can reach to. And I knew it. I knew it, that, you know, my dad has expressed to me, yeah, you know, I hope my son will be something like this. And so I just thought I just crushed all his dreams. And he's crying. I said, Dad, no, you know, I just had a thought. And he said, you know, son, no. I have never thought that my son will ever say to me, Dad, I want to serve God into full-time ministry. And then he asked me a question. Well, I've been serving myself in full-time ministry. And he asked me a question saying, tell me the last time you and your mom ever slept hungry. And I couldn't recollect, I couldn't remember a single day where I slept hungry. God has been so faithful and so good to us. Yes, we lack things, but there's not a single day in my life that I slept hungry. God always took care of us. And I knew it. I said, Dad, I don't remember. I never slept hungry. Looking at me, oh, I never slept hungry. Praise God. Yeah. And I knew it. And when I went, and when I filled up the application to go to seminary, God opened doors for me, and I wanted to go into seminary. And as I filled the application, Dad made sure it was God who was calling me. He said, son, are you sure you really want to serve God with your life? I said, yes, Dad, I do. And he asked me 3 times the same question. I said, Dad, you know, I really want to serve God with my life. And then after the 3rd time he asked me, he said, son, if you really want to serve God with your life, then don't be just another pastor in town. Be a man that world has never seen. Amen. Be a man of God. Amen. You know, be a man who seek God's face. And it stuck with me all throughout this time. My biggest passion is to seek God's face. Amen. You know, and I realized what I was looking for is God to move His hand in my life. Amen. What I should have been doing is seeking God's face. And I realized that process was very much started there when my dad was asking me those questions. That, son, the key to be successful in the ministry and to be an impact on people's life, that you got to be a man who seeks God's face. And so I came into the full-time ministry. From there I went to seminary, and right after seminary I went to Columbia, and I realized, yes, I have been to seminary. You know what? One of the greatest things seminary did to me, that it filled my head with more books. And more than the Bible, actually. I read more books than the Bible itself. And what it taught me, actually, was to really defend my faith with Hindus and Muslims and all kinds of people I came across. You know, and I can tell you this, I can literally make them look stupid for what they believe. I was very expert in that because I've been through a seminary education, read books on how to defend your faith among people who don't believe. You know, so I started doing all that. And then God, when He took me to Colombia, South America as a missionary, the very first month, you know, what I expected there was so different than what was happening to me. I thought India is 30 hours away from, from US, and we have English. You can survive on the street with English. Colombia is only 3 hours away from Miami. You know, there must be a lot of English. And when I landed in Colombia, I heard Spanish for the first time, and that Spanish never went away. It was the only language I heard there. I thought there was a lot of English, but no. You know, there was no English there. I found first guy speaking Spanglish after 4 months. And so those 4 months, all I did was I was questioning God again. I was crying, why did you bring me here? You knew this country more than, all I knew was Colombia is a land of movies, because I saw these movies that says Colombian Pictures. And now I'm all frustrated because I'm in a country, there's a whole different movie going on with the gorillas and all this. I don't know where I ended up. And I was questioning God, why did you bring me here? You know, and I started finding every single thing difficult. This is the first time I ever left India. You know, everybody in Colombia is on their shorts and everything, and I go to the beach with all my jeans and full shirt. I was a weird guy, and I just felt so weird. And Colombians are very curious people, by the way, so they surround me and they say, oh, tell me, they worship cows in India? And they have all these questions that they have seen on National Geographic, something weird, and they want to ask me. You know, and I just felt, and I couldn't even respond, because I don't speak their language, and I just felt like, I felt like an animal in a zoo, and everybody's watching me every single place I went. I was like something Indian exotic thing for them. And I felt frustrated, I cried, I questioned God every step of the way, and I fought back. And after 1 month, the God started pulling all the stuff away, in the sense that He took all my toilet papers away. He took all my toothpaste away, because I started running out of my stuff. I have not a single Indian person that I know in the entire continent of South America. I do not have a single dollar support that would support me into the ministry. When I went to Colombia, my dad literally took out his retirement to pay for my airplanes 13 years ago. 5 of those airplanes I needed to get to Cartagena. And so my dad, in fact, borrowed money too to pay for mine, because it was so costly. It was one-way ticket, that's all he could afford. But he poured in everything because he believed God has called my son. And so when I went there, now I'm out of resources. And I remember the day I had no toothpaste left to brush, and I started grumbling, God, you called me in the ministry. How this is possible? I'm living life like this. You know, where is your provision? And I believe God, you know, God literally said to me something that I never did in my life. You know what? If tomorrow morning you do not have a toothpaste, go to the kitchen, grab some salt. And I never did that in my life, you know. And I was just so frustrated. And God was just breaking everything in my life. He started taking out all that stuff that I was dependent on. And then I realized that, you know what, there's nothing I can do about this. I can really get better at this, or I can get bitter and be mad at God. So I decided, okay, God, I will do this. And the moment I started trusting God, a month after when I got there, I realized that the next evening, you know, I had this guy who came and showed up at the door. He lives on the outside, on the outskirts of the city, probably an hour away, and he showed up with 2 bags, and he's trying to speak in Spanglish, and he's telling me, hey, you know what, my mom gift And he bought 2 bags filled with toilet papers, and he bought some food, and he also bought everything that I needed. And I promise you this, for the next 3 years that I lived here, every single time I ran out of this toilet paper, that boy would stand in my door every single time. I don't know how she will know I was running out of toilet. I was the only missionary who always had a stack of toilet paper that all missionaries would grab from my room without asking me. And I see that God was literally providing me with stupid stuff, but it was profoundly powerful. And then I go into church, and as I'm sharing my testimony, I see a lady jumping in the back, and then later on, the pastor comes and he says, hey, you know what, there was a lady jumping in the back when you started singing a song on guitar, and when you were sharing, actually that's my mom. And the reason why, because before you guys come here to our church for a mission trip, God gave her a vision, and she saw a man who was playing a guitar, and he was exactly born like you, and he was singing that song. A week prior to that, I remember going and knocking on door-to-door evangelism, and one of the doors that we knocked, a lady came on. She was Jehovah's Witness lady, And I realized for 3 days that we knocked on her door. Every time we knocked, she would just stare at me, and I just don't know why she was staring at me. And I knew that Colombians, they stare at me because I'm Indian exotic thing for them. I just don't know why this lady's looking at me all the time. But she will also say, no, come back tomorrow. And on the 3rd day, when we went back, she invited us in, and these 2 ladies that were on my team, they were talking to her. So my job was to sit on a couch and pray. Close your eyes and pray for the next hour or 2. And so I realized all the talking was done by this lady. And I'm saying, girls, come on, witness to this lady. And as they were sharing all those things, I saw at the end she was crying. And one of the things she was crying about, as we walked away from the house, those girls were telling me that, the reason every time we introduce ourselves, hey, we are so-and-so from so-and-so place, and can we have a word with you? And she was saying, how come this guy's from India? There's no way this guy's from India. I know him. I have seen him somewhere. But she couldn't recollect where it was. And then later on, she realized on the 3rd day where exactly she saw. She saw me in dreams twice, 3 months prior to, even before I come to Colombia. And she said, I saw you, and I was climbing the mountain, and as I was climbing the mountain, it was getting dark, and as I looked down, it was really dark, and I started getting scared. And I started screaming. And as I started trying to go up, because on the top of the mountain, I saw light. And I wanted to go there as soon as possible. And as she was climbing the mountain, there came a point where she thought she's going to fall down, she's going to die, she's done. She was so terrified with fear. And then all of a sudden, she heard some man screaming. And he was telling her, hey, come here, Jesus is here. And it turned out to be me. I was looking down, and I was saying, hey, Jesus is here, come on, you can make it. And she saw my face. Now, I'm coming from a Baptist background, okay? So I don't believe that point in all of this stuff can really happen. But all of this stuff started happening to me. And I realized, how is this even possible? I wasn't even in Colombia. God was already setting up everything. And that woman, that day, gave her life to Christ. And I didn't say a word. And it was so powerful for me. But I'm trying to say you that, I had plans to do this, do that, and I wanted to serve God, and I felt everything was going to go the way I had thought and planned, and nothing went according to my plan, as even my brother said. I realized I have a God whose plans are better than mine.
Amen.
I realized that my God has plans that go further beyond before I get there, and He prepares the place for us, and He does all those things. God brought me from Colombia to Jacksonville, and I was preaching into these Hispanic churches, and I realized there are my Indian friends, and there's no church. And God started, as I started praying that God would raise somebody, God started pulling me, it's you who are going to do this. And I really didn't want to go and do this, especially, no one is prophet to their own people. I didn't want to deal with my people, but God led me, and at the end, I surrendered myself. I started planting a church, pastored a church for 6 years, And just when I married Fabiola, something happened. I went to a conference, I came back, and something happened in the church. And I felt that there was hostility among the leadership. And by the time I could even figure out what happened, the entire church one day, well, the entire church just left. And I remember, standing there Sunday after Sunday, trying to preach, and all I could do is to cry before the church. I simply couldn't say, because I couldn't understand, God, you called me to this. I just don't understand what I have done to tick people off that everybody left, with exception to one or two. Among them was a Hindu guy whom I witnessed and won to Christ, baptized him in the church. He was the only guy who was telling all other Christians, hey, don't you see the enemy is messing up? And I remember within a matter of hours, as we drove around the city in Jacksonville, me and Fabiola, we were just crying in our car because we have no family where we can go. No, we had nobody left. Everything was done. We were back to that zero place. And I remember we were driving and we started crying as we were driving because we just don't know. What did I do to deserve this? And as I pulled over, I remember Fabiola saying this. And I was telling him, we have lost everything. We are done. We will never recover from this. And she said, no, actually we haven't. We have actually found the true church. Look at Sandy, the Hindu man. He's still standing strong. Praise God, he's still standing strong. Today he serves in a church of 5,000 people, and he's leading people to Christ. But we found that all the religious folks, there will come a point they will leave. But people who are genuinely connected to Christ and they found Christ and they found the way, the truth, and life will hold on to him. Yes. And then I realized, yes, I was hurting badly at that point in my life and ministry. But I also realized that the folks who have left, without even ever talking to me, the issue, they were having barbecues. And I realized, why am I sweating over stuff? Why am I still being held? I just felt I couldn't serve anymore. I couldn't ever pastor a church. I will never recover that. And at that point I realized that this is not mine, it's his. There's nothing personal. But on the other side, God started showing me his father heart, that I'm daddy. And you exactly do the same thing over and over without even realizing it. Folks, I just want to tell you that, yes, many are our plans, but it is God's plan that prosper. There's a reason why God allowed me to be born in a Christian home out of 1 billion people. I would have been easily born into any Hindu home. And I still question myself sometimes when I come here and I worship and I feel God's presence, I have this fellowship with you all. I just can't thank God enough for allowing this moment in my life. And I sometimes ask myself a question, what would have happened if I wouldn't have found Jesus? Would I ever enjoy God's presence this way? Would I been ever come to America? Would I ever met my wife and my children? Would I ever met you all? I realize that it's only because of Jesus and his love that binds us wherever we're coming from. That his plan is so perfect that everything lines up. 6 months ago, we were planning to buy a house in Florida, and we literally had everything in place. We had money, and we had a broker who was trying to sell a house, and then God started speaking to us in mysterious way. Even the broker who's selling me the house, who has interest, was telling me, you need to move out of Florida. And I just knew that God was something up to, that I need to pay attention. And long before even I came to, I never stepped into Texas 6 months prior to this. I've never been here. But every time anybody in Florida fussed about, the direction of the country, I'll say, go to Texas. I'll always tell them. In fact, my brother was asking me, well, where should I go apply for? I said, I think you should apply something in Texas. And I have never been here. But then even for last 10 years, that's what something God installed in my heart about Texas. And then 6 months ago, when even the brokers started talking about it, my biggest hurdle was, how is my wife going to react to it? Because I have spoken to about this before. How about moving to Texas? And she said, are you crazy? Why are we going to leave all our church family and just go to Texas? So I come home that day knowing that God is up to something, and I'm just expecting God to move in our heart. And the moment I shared to her that, honey, you remember, well, I used to talk about moving to Texas? And that day, the way she responded was completely different than all other dozen times that she did. She said, when are we moving? And I said, we are moving by the end of the month. And literally within 30 days, we didn't have no job guarantee. We didn't have no place where we're going to stay, except with the fact that God has moved my brother supernaturally 8 months prior to I come here. So I at least knew I had a place to sleep, you know. And so, you know, where should we go in Texas? Of course, where my brother is. Let's go. You know, I had no idea where Austin is, honestly. I heard about Austin, but never knew exactly geographically, because I never cared where Austin was. And I ended up here. And I see God's goodness. And we were praying, God, I am trusting you with this. And I'm going into something I don't know. How I'm going to pay the rent. I don't know even if they're going to, you know, sign a contract with no job or anything. But God worked out those within a matter of days, not even a week, you know. And God started, and we were praying, one of the things we were praying, that God, you direct our step and connect us to right people, right church. And I tell you, the first church that we ever visited was Key Point. And 2 months thereafter, every single Sunday, I'm speeding to church on Sundays. And I'm going, and as I'm heading home, every time I left church, all I do is cry. Because God is so tremendously pouring in my life. You remember, I lost the church. And with all that time has been so dry spiritually, because my spiritual life was completely non-existent. And I was craving for more. I wanted to discover that relationship and that passion, and I was losing all that, and I realized I'm losing it. And this is where God started working in my life. God has a plan for my life. Amen. God has a plan for your life. Amen. It's not done no matter what you go. Even when people say, hey, you pretty much, that's done. Even when you yourself tell yourself it's done. I have a friend who has a plan, and it always works every single time. Amen.